Heavy rain in Gwangju in Jeollanam-do province has caused at least 100 incidents of damage from flooding overnight, as the region's already reeled from damage caused by previous downpours. Higher agricultural product prices are creating real stress on the kitchen table, especially so in the weeks to come after heavy monsoon rainfall in Korea, likely creating a gap with the related index. The recent death of a school teacher in Korea has now triggered controversy over the Student Human Rights Ordinance, as President Yoon orders measures to address teachers' authority being violated in classrooms. It's July 24th, 2023. This is News Center. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. Heavy rainfall swept across the southern parts of the country overnight and just this morning, as many areas still reel from damage by previous downpours. And there are still many aspects to investigate regarding the tragedy in the Osong underpass. Our Joo-hyung leads us off.
Heavy rainfall has been pouring down in the southwestern part of South Korea as of Monday morning, up to 20 mm per hour, resulting in serious damage to the area. According to the Korea Meteorological Agency, Jeollanam-do province has been the most affected and is issuing alerts on a real-time basis. Additionally, the presidential office also mentioned that it's currently taking a closer look into the extreme weather hitting the peninsula due to climate change.
President Yoon told Prime Minister Han to make sure to rearrange the disaster response system by operating a task force involving relevant agencies.
Since the heavy rain began on the 9th, approximately 10,000 residential and commercial facilities have collapsed, and the area of agricultural land damage is estimated to be around 350 square kilometers, which is 100 times larger than Central Park in New York. Nearly 20,000 people affected by this have sought shelter, and among them, 2,500 individuals are still unable to return home. Officials stated that about 70% of emergency recovery operations in the affected regions have been completed, and volunteers and military personnel are being mobilized from all over the country to assist those in need. On Monday, following the tragic underpass flooding in Osong, prosecutors conducted search and seizure operations at 5 public agencies, including the Chungcheongbuk-do Provincial Police Agency and Cheongju City Hall, as part of an investigation into potential negligence and inadequate response. The Office for Government Policy Coordination also revealed that during the disaster probe, significant dereliction of duty allegations were made against officials from the Chungcheongbuk-do Provincial Office, the Road Management Office in the area, and the National Agency for Administrative City Construction. The Coordination Office is currently inspecting all relevant agencies and will promptly initiate additional investigation if any serious allegations emerge during the process. Joo-hyung, Arirang News.
Higher agricultural product prices are creating real stress on the kitchen table, especially so in the weeks to come after heavy monsoon. It's likely creating a gap with the consumer price index. Moon Hae-ryun tells us more.
Consumer price rises in South Korea seem to be cooling, but there could be more price volatility amid the recent torrential rainfall. According to Statistics Korea, the consumer price index for daily necessities was up 2.3%, the smallest increase in 27 months. The index consists of 144 items often bought by consumers, reflecting how consumers actually feel inflation. However, despite a slowdown in the CPI for daily necessities, the prices of some agricultural goods are seeing a dramatic rise. Korea Agro-Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation said that vegetable prices have increased after crops were damaged by the recent flooding. As of last Friday, prices of green lettuce rose 398% compared to 4 weeks ago, while red lettuce jumped 343%. Prices of spinach too rose 214%. Now August may see scorching heat, and in September typhoons are typically expected, which means there could be more volatility in agricultural prices. With many Koreans looking to buy vegetables to eat with samgyeopsal or grilled pork belly as a staple summer dish, they're feeling the rise in prices more than ever.
The cheap vegetable corner that used to be here is now gone. They used to sell lettuce at around 991, but it's gone now. And the lettuce that used to be around 1,801 has jumped to 6,801. I'm going to have to eat something else with my samgyeopsal today because it's so expensive.
The South Korean government, however, says that inflation is expected to continue slowing down despite the recent volatilities, adding that it will work to stabilize the prices of food and daily necessities. Finance Minister Joo-hyung on Friday said it will focus on vegetable supplies and support a crop reseed amid heavy rain.
As you can see here, the government is providing up to 30% discounts for chicken and vegetables to combat rising prices. They will also import 5 million hatched eggs to stabilize chicken supplies. 문혜련, Arirang News.
The death of an elementary school teacher in an apparent suicide last week in Seoul has shocked many. It's now triggered controversy over the Student Human Rights Ordinance, as President Yoon today ordered measures to address teachers' authority being violated in classrooms. Kim Do-yeon has the details.
President Yoon has called for measures to protect the nation's teachers and their rights in the classroom as he met with his top secretaries on Monday. This comes as a public elementary school teacher appeared to have taken her own life in her classroom last week after reportedly being under huge stress from her students' parents. The top office says by next month there will be clear guidelines set by the Education Ministry that meets the current education laws and stance of the presidential office in terms of teacher authority when it comes to guiding students.
The president instructed the Ministry of Education to promptly prepare specific guidelines to reflect the revisions of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and its enforcement decree.
Strengthening teachers' rights has been a core task for the Yoon administration since its beginning. Last year, the public education law was amended to allow teachers to educate students on behavior, while in June, a decree was revised to give teachers the right to comment on students' character.
Since its inauguration, the Yoon administration has consistently pursued a policy of strengthening teaching authority. It's based on the policy's philosophy that establishing conditions justifies the education being given and, in turn, benefits the students.
President Yoon also ordered a revision to unreasonable educational ordinances that allow a teacher's authority to be violated. This is an apparent reference to the Student Human Rights Ordinance introduced in 2010, banning certain disciplinary measures and removing constraints on personal items carried into schools and the use of mobile phones. It's currently adopted by 7 regional education offices, including Seoul's, but has been criticized by some educational experts for taking away teachers' rights in their classroom. However, it has remained controversial as it was pushed by left-leaning educational experts and politicians. On the other hand, some of the teachers were quoted in local reports as saying that while the ordinance could allow certain violations to happen, it is not the fundamental problem to the situation at the moment, and a more deep discussions are needed. In the meantime, the teacher who appeared to have taken her own life was a 23-year-old woman in charge of first graders at Seoul's Hoi Elementary School in southern Seoul. Ever since her death, teachers across the nation have shown their anger towards the current system while calling for change. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea's counterterrorism agency confirmed that it had found no connections to terrorism in thousands of unordered parcels from overseas arriving in Korea in recent days. Nevertheless, a joint investigation with Interpol is underway. Lee Si-woo reports.
The over 2,000 unordered parcels that arrived in South Korea from overseas in recent days are not connected to any terrorist activity, according to South Korea's Office for Government Policy Coordination, which said its counterterrorism body had found no connection to terrorism. The National Counterterrorism Center, led by the Prime Minister, found no confirmed cases of injuries or threats in relation to the shipments. But it added that cooperative investigations with the International Criminal Police Organization and other investigative organizations overseas are underway. As of Monday morning, over 2,100 reports of mysterious parcels were reported to the police, of which over 1,400 were simple consultations or false reports due to misunderstandings. The police have collected over 600 parcels and are conducting a thorough investigation into them. Most reported envelopes were delivered empty or with small products such as lip balm or toothpicks enclosed. Reports of suspicious shipments began last Thursday in the city of Ulsan. At a facility for the disabled, 3 people opened an envelope presumed to have been sent from Taiwan and experienced headaches and difficulty breathing. They were sent to hospital for treatment and are in good condition, but police are still warning the public to never open such parcels and instead report any yellow or black-colored envelopes with Cheonghwa Post and a sending address in Taipei, Taiwan written on them. While most packages appear to be from Taiwan, Taipei's embassy in South Korea said it had found that the parcels in question were originally sent from China and arrived in South Korea after a stopover in Taiwan. Seoul's foreign ministry has reached out to its Chinese counterpart as well as the relevant authorities and local governments and requested confirmation of the details regarding the suspicious packages. The Chinese authorities said that it's currently conducting an investigation into the matter. 이시후, Arirang News.
Talks have reportedly begun between the United Nations Command and North Korea regarding the U.S. soldier who recently defected. This is according to the deputy commander of the UN command speaking at a briefing on Monday. They explained that the conversation had been initiated and was conducted with Pyongyang's military through a mechanism established under the Korean War armistice located in the joint security area. He also stressed that the primary topic of concern was the welfare of the U.S. soldier. Travis King, an American soldier serving in South Korea, crossed the border into North Korea last week during a civilian tour of the border that separates the two Koreas. An investigation into how King was allowed on the tour is currently underway as he had multiple disciplinary incidents and served time in detention. Another American nuclear-powered submarine has arrived in South Korea. This is the second deployment of a major U.S. naval asset to the country this month, adding to the Allies' show of force against growing threats from North Korea. Bae Eun-ji has more.
A 6,000-ton nuclear-powered submarine, the USS Annapolis, arrived at a port on Jeju Island on Monday, 3 days after the USS Kentucky left Busan after staying for 4 days. South Korea's Navy explained Monday that the submarine is here to load supplies, but hinted at the possibility of conducting military training.
The purpose of the deployment of the USS Annapolis is to load military supplies during its mission. Marking its visit, the naval forces of South Korea and the U.S. plan to strengthen our combined defense posture and conduct activities together in commemoration of the 70th anniversary of the two countries' alliance.
The USS Annapolis, a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine, is 6,000 tons when surfaced and nearly 7,000 tons when submerged. Based in California, it is 110 meters long and can move at a speed of more than 25 knots, or 46 kilometers per hour. Attack submarines are designed to seek and destroy enemy submarines and surface ships, and Los Angeles-class submarines carry weapons like Tomahawk land attack missiles. The arrival of the submarine comes at a sensitive time as North Korea is set to celebrate the 70th anniversary of what it calls Victory Day on Thursday, marking the day the Korean War armistice was signed, July 27, 1953. There is the possibility that the North may hold a large-scale military parade or carry out more missile tests, as the regime warned last week that the deployment of U.S. nuclear assets in South Korea could meet the conditions for the use of nuclear weapons. Raising tensions even more, its state newspaper said Monday that improving military power is never enough and stressed the need to expand power quickly at all costs. One expert says the North may go on with parades and missile tests, but says he does not expect any kind of direct actions just yet.
In unconventional warfare, when you are in the weak, you do not attack. So they're waiting until they have the ultimate capability, which is to strike the United States with nuclear weapons. And until then, they will not use their final card.
The same expert noted that once the regime is confident of its nuclear capability, meaning it can strike the United States, there will be more than just talks or simple tests. Instead, the regime could engage in direct provocations to get South Korea and the U.S. to the negotiating table under their terms. Arirang News.
A Russian missile strike on Ukraine's southern port city of Odessa severely damaged a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the city's largest Orthodox cathedral. Ukraine's Culture Ministry says Sunday's attack, which killed at least one person and injured more than 20, also destroyed or damaged 24 other historic buildings. In a statement, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned Moscow's latest aggression, saying those injured in the strike included children and vowed retaliation. Russian missile attacks on Odessa have persisted throughout the past week, with it targeting Ukrainian food export facilities following its termination of the Black Sea grain deal. The number of travelers using South Korea's main gateway, Incheon International Airport, is expected to peak during the first weekend of August. Incheon International Airport Corporation said on Monday that it expects to see 3.9 million passengers using the country's main gateway during the next 3 weeks of the summer vacation season starting Tuesday. It added that August 6th will be likely be the most crowded day with more than 191,000 people using the airport. The number of tourists using the airport during this summer is projected to recover up to 86% of that of pre-COVID-19 levels seen in 2019. Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us here in the studio is our sports editor, Paul Need. Evening, Paul.
Evening.
Let's first start with golf. A best ever finish from a South Korean at the PGA Open Championship.
Yes, that's right. Kim Joo-hyung, or Tom Kim, as he's known on the PGA Tour, he finished in second place. This is the best ever finish by a South Korean at the Open, and at 21, he's the youngest since Seri Ballesteros, who was 19 when he finished as runner-up in 1976. Kim, on Sunday local time at the Royal Liverpool Golf Club in Hoylake, England, finished at 7 under par 277, 6 behind winner Brian Harman of the United States. He actually finished tied for second with 3 others, Sepp Straka of Austria, Jason Day of Australia and John Rahm of Spain. South Korea's previous best at the Open was Chae Kyung-joo, finishing 8th in 2007.
And moving on to football now. Joo-hyung had a debut to remember for his new club in Denmark.
Yes, a goal on his debut for FC Midtjylland. It came on Saturday, the opening day of the new Danish Superliga season, and Joo-hyung scored the game's only goal in a 1-0 win over Herrovde. It came in the 56 minutes, a bullet header at the near post following a cross from the left. Cho played 73 minutes before being replaced by Sori Kaba. He joined Midtjylland from K-League side Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors on July 11th, earning a move to Europe after a meteoric rise to fame following last year's World Cup, where he scored 2 goals as Korea reached the last 16.
And let's move on to badminton. A second Korea Open Championship in a row for An Se-young. What can you tell us?
Yes, the second seed, An Se-young, beat Tai Chi-young of the Chinese Taipei in Sunday's final here in Yosu. She won in straight sets as well, 21-9 and 21-15. Last year's win for An was a first for Korea in 7 years. Now, for the first time in 29 years, a South Korean has won the competition for 2 years in a row. The last time a Korean did that was Bang Soo-hyun in 1993 and 1994. It's also the first time anyone has won the competition back-to-back in 22 years since Camilla Martin of Denmark in the year 2000 and 2001. But for An this season, it's her 6th gold medal of the current campaign.
Great achievement. And let's move on to swimming. The World Aquatics Championship, Hwang Sun-woo is due to compete in the semi-final tonight.
Yes, that's right. In the men's 200-meter freestyle. This is because he managed to tie for 13th in the heats earlier today with a time of 1 minute 46.69 seconds. The top 16 of 67 qualify, but Hwang was only 100th of a second ahead of Antonio Djakovic, who finished in 16th. He's aiming to become the first South Korean swimmer to win a medal at back-to-back World Championships. Joo-hyung also made it through after finishing in 5th. Meanwhile, there's a new women's world record in the 400-meter freestyle. Olympic champion Arirang of Australia finished at 3 minutes 55.38 seconds.
All right, and finally, the Women's World Cup is well underway now, with Monday being day 5, and we're less than 24 hours removed from South Korea's first game.
Yes, that's right. Korea take on Colombia on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Korea Standard Time. It'll be Korea's first ever meeting against Colombia, a side that's ranked 25th in the world. Korea, for comparison, are ranked 17th. But Korea are heading into their 4th World Cup, having also qualified in 2003, 2015 and 2019. They are, though, looking for their first win in a World Cup opener, having lost 4-0 to France in 2019, 2-0 to Brazil in 2015 and 3-0 to Brazil in 2003. The furthest Korea has made it is the round of 16. That was in 2015, before then losing to France 3-0. The other two teams in Korea's group this year are Germany and Morocco. Their match kicked off at 5:30 p.m. Korea time, and Germany were 2-0 up at half-time.
Right, looking forward to all that. Thanks for the wrap-up, Paul. See you next week.
Thank you. See you.
Heavy monsoonal showers will continue until tomorrow here in South Korea. If you take a look at the satellite imagery, rain clouds are currently clustered across the south of the country. Therefore, expect torrential downpours across southern regions. Jeollado province will see the most amount of rainfall, with up to 120 millimeters in the forecast. Chungcheongdo provinces and the surrounding regions will see up to 80. For some areas, locally heavy downpours of 30 to 60 millimeters per hour will lash down. Continuous rain across the south is weakening the ground, making it easier to cause landslides and flash flooding. While showers are forecast to last until Wednesday, the monsoon season could get extended depending on the movement of the 5th typhoon that is currently near the Philippines. Please continue to refer to the latest weather updates. Tomorrow, Seoul will start off at 25 degrees. Other inland regions will start off at 24 degrees. And rainy spells will become more widespread by the daytime. Seoul and Chuncheon will get up to 29, Gwangju 30, Gyeongju will be reaching 33 degrees. Until Thursday, frequent showers are expected for the capital region. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is News Center for tonight. Thanks for watching. A panel session coming up.
라이브! 저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해주시는 세션분들
아무리 봐도 이거 먹지 텐션 같은데 아니라고 아무도 안 하는 거고.
좋아요.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Hi, my name is Tamara Mawini. I am Canada's ambassador to the Republic of Korea. I know that Arirang TV and Arirang Media has been very active in sharing around the world the wonders and achievements in Korea, and I really look forward to all their future endeavors and how they will help promote strong media, freedom of expression, journalism, and culture into the future. And Canada's excited to be part of that. Really welcomed Arirang's engagement in our own 60th anniversary of diplomatic relations this year between Canada and Korea, and we look forward to continuing the partnership. Thank you. 감사합니다. Resonating with the world, Arirang.
입니다. 항공 스탠바이. 항공 스타트.
부모님에 대한 이야기, 형제 이런 것은 아마 전쟁을 겪어보지 않은 국가의 군대 군가에서는 아마 등장하기 어려운 그런 이야기들일 겁니다.
웰컴. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Hello everyone, it's Monday and you're watching Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. Ahead of the 70th anniversary of the armistice agreement from the Korean War, which North Korea calls Victory Day, the regime had been ramping up its thorny rhetoric and launching missiles. With tensions on the peninsula escalating, Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo are reportedly going to have a trilateral summit next month at Camp David. Now, what are main topics that are going to be discussed and what significance does this summit have? To talk about this, we invite Professor Im Eun-jung from Gwangju National University. Professor Im, welcome.
Hello.
Hello. And we also have Bruce Klinger, a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Mr. Klinger, thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
All right. Now, first question to our Professor Im. Now, a trilateral summit between Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo is going to take place in August. And this marks the first time three countries' leaders will meet other than on the sidelines of the separate summit. Well, what significance does this standalone summit have?
Well, as you just mentioned, this is ever first time for the three countries' leaders to have a separate summit meeting, because they have usually had trilateral summit meetings during the other multilateral meetings like G7 and anything else. However, this time, again, the three leaders decided to meet in the Camp Davis in the Midland, which is 1 hour drive from Washington, D.C. And, you know, it indicates that the three countries' leaders agreed on the importance of the trilateral cooperation, which was pretty much expected. Because if we recall our memory, during the G7 Hiroshima meetings, again, the President Biden invited the two other leaders, President Yoon and the Prime Minister Kishida, because back then, even though we expected a longer, more, substantial meeting. However, back then in May in Hiroshima, President Zelensky of Ukraine made his visit, and every agenda or every scheduled meeting was cannot but again to be rescheduled or adjusted. So back then again, the President Biden invited the two leaders. Or last November in the Phnom Penh, Cambodia, the three leaders had a meeting and they agreed on a declaration which was about much more comprehensive cooperation among the three countries. Again, the trilateral cooperation among the three makes more sense than before, having had the more intensified threat from the nuclear-armed North, or U.S.-China strategic rivalry is getting intensified as well, which can cause some, potentially can cause some economic security-related risk in the future. So having had all this kind of more like a complex, risky situations, again, the three leaders, I think, agreed on the importance of the trilateral cooperation.
Right, I see. So this summit is going to be more significant in that it could be much more longer and it could be focused on three-way cooperation. Now, Mr. Klinger, the meeting is going to be held at Camp David, rural U.S. presidential retreat. And a lot of experts say this is very significant. In what ways do you believe so?
Well, Camp David is a presidential vacation retreat. He often goes there for the weekend because it is only about an hour drive or a shorter flight from the White House. And the most famous meetings that took place at Camp David were in 1978 between the U.S., Israel, and Egypt, and that led to what was called the Camp David Accords, which is a very significant breakthrough in improving relations between Israel and Egypt. And other than that, there have been several or numerous meetings amongst leaders, and they're either seen as it provides an isolated retreat where difficult negotiations can occur, or in the case of the South Korea, Japan, U.S. meeting, it's going to be much friendlier, much more informal, and more important than the location will be the discussions, which are a reflection not only of the increasing Chinese and North Korean threat, but also the growing policy alignment amongst Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo. And there has been a lot of progress and obviously in improving relations between Seoul and Tokyo, and that has led to a much greater security cooperation bilaterally and trilaterally.
Right, I see. Now, Professor Lim, let's talk about the agenda that's going to be on the table. Now, first and foremost will be a discussion on strengthening deterrence against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. In what way will three-way cooperation be enhanced in this area?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely, as you just mentioned, North Korea's nuclear program should be and will be, I think, discussed as the top priority among the three leaders. This is really main fundamental purpose of the trilateral cooperation, I think. Because if you think about, geographic location, again, South Korea, we borders north, which means we have our shorter distance from them. And we do have a more like a human intelligence capability, which is called like a human. Whereas Japan is little distant from the peninsula. Because of that, again, they can see the where the missile drops, which means, again, we do have more like a kind of complementary information between, again, the South Korea and the Japan. Of course, U.S. is back there. So having had this, complementarity among the three countries, I think, again, we can strengthen our intelligence capability and at the same time our deterrence capability as well. So that should be definitely number one agenda. But not only just that, again, we have many other emerging security issues. Again, this year, again, during the Arirang news, the news time, again, the reporters have reported about all this, disastrous situations in South Korea. Again, heavy monsoon rains really hit the country, and every year, those natural disaster is getting more and more serious. So we definitely need to seriously deal with the challenge by the climate change. Japan definitely, and Japan, they do have more natural disaster than the peninsula, which means they have more actually know-hows or even more technology about how to deal with the natural disaster. So climate change or how to deal with the natural disaster, this can be another agenda, or like energy security issues or cyber security too. Because, North Korea, they not only just, they are threatening us not only with the nuclear arms or nuclear weapons, they also stealing money from the cryptocurrency system, and they use those money to develop their weapons. So cybersecurity is now literally a real threat, not only to South Korea, to Japan, or to US, or to the rest of the world. So again, cybersecurity can be another agenda. Economic security or human rights issue, there can be many other important agenda for the three countries to talk together.
Right, I see. So the talk could definitely include a variety of issues, including cybersecurity and so on. Now, Mr. Klinger, before we move on to economic security cooperation, recently the inaugural meeting of the Nuclear Consultative Group took place in Seoul. And though NSC, the official Kurt Campbell, already pointed out that the primary focus is on intensive bilateral engagement between Seoul and Washington, do you see any possibility of discussion taking place regarding this NCG developing into a trilateral framework to include Japan?
I think it's very likely. Whether the NCG itself grows to three countries or whether there's a separate trilateral group is immaterial. But we certainly have to have greater trilateral cooperation on security issues, not only against the North Korean threat, but the Chinese threat. And Japan is far less concerned about the U.S. extended deterrent guarantee than Seoul has been in recent months. But it certainly makes sense to have greater cooperation, whichever group it is. And because any kind of conflict on the Korean Peninsula would involve not only the United States and Korea, but certainly Japan. There's the 7 UN command rear bases in Japan, which the U.S. as well as UN sending states would need to defeat any kind of North Korean conflict. So it certainly makes sense, but it may not be in the near term. But there is a separate U.S.-Japan nuclear consultative group with a different name. But certainly, I think we'll see trilateral or even quadrilateral, including Australia, sometime in the future.
I see your point. Now, Professor Lim, let's move on to the economic security cooperation that is also going to be on the agenda. Now, how might the three countries, enhance supply chain ties amid China's ongoing export controls on rare materials?
Well, of course, Korea, Japan, U.S., all these countries are highly industrialized society and economy. These countries definitely have to move forward toward the fourth industrial revolution and low carbon society. Again, how to decarbonize our economic system and how to achieve all this digital transformation toward the fourth industrial revolution. These two are, again, the demands of the time. So definitely, of course, not only just these three countries, any country should be probably and is willing to move forward to that direction. However, when we are trying to achieve that goal, again, the fourth industrial revolution and low carbon society, we need a new technology or green technology. However, these green technologies also need some material, raw material. And Korea, Japan, these two countries are unfortunately very natural resource poor countries. So when we are trying to expand, for example, renewable energy, we need to, of course, produce solar panel. But when you're trying to produce a solar panel, we need to import another like raw material, critical minerals from China-like resource richer countries. So these things is again the complicating supply network. However, now what basically Korea or Japan-like country are trying to do is, we want to reduce dependency on some specific country, like, again, the China. This is not against, I don't think this is against China. Rather, we are trying to balance out. So definitely, U.S.'s strategy these days is nearshoring or reshoring, ally-shoring, friend-shoring. These kind of strategies are, again, conducted by the U.S. and Korea and Japan-like countries are also trying to be with that kind of strategy, because we need to definitely balance. Otherwise, our risk management cannot be that much sustainable. So economic security issue, definitely important, critical issue for the country like Korea, Japan, resource poor country. And I think through this trilateral meeting, the three countries can to work and can discuss further on how to balance or how to reduce dependency on some specific source or some specific country. Again, this is, I think, a pretty much necessary step for all the three countries too.
I see. I can definitely see the reason why South Korea and, of course, Japan needs a strategy to secure those raw materials. Now, Mr. Klinger, discussion on ongoing global issues, including the war in Ukraine, of course, will take place. And given that President Yoon Suk-yeol visited Kyiv recently, what further developments could we expect?
Well, I think there'll be discussions on what additional security support that South Korea can provide. I believe that South Korea should provide direct lethal aid to Ukraine. Seoul has avoided that so far. They've provided a lot of weapons and ammunition to Poland, which may or may not be going into Ukraine. While Seoul claims that it has not been providing the military aid, we don't know if artillery shells and others may have gone into Ukraine. But I think, to uphold the principles that President Yoon has said in numerous speeches, and as well as the national security strategy of South Korea, it would be, fulfilling those high, lofty aspirations for South Korea to stand up to the Russian invasion, the aggression by Moscow against Ukraine, and provide military aid directly to Ukraine. It's very much needed right now. Other nations have been providing direct lethal aid, and I think it is in the interests not only of Ukraine, but also to uphold South Korea's principles to do the same.
Right. I believe we should just wait and see what kind of decisions South Korea could more make for Ukraine. Now, Professor Lim, so some watchers have raised the possibility of creating a regular summit forum similar to that of Quad, holding annual summits in each country. What are the chances of such a forum coming into existence? And if it does, what would that mean?
Well, we'll see. I think the possibility is pretty likely. Comparatively speaking, compared to before, again, it definitely became much more likely than before. However, still in this country or in Japan as well, there are critical voices or even concerns as well. Still, the level of trust between the two countries' people, I can't say is high enough to back up fully, again, the national leaders, again, willingness or political will to move forward. So probably we need to be a little much more careful about those, critical domestic, those critical opinion as well. However, as long as, again, we do face this serious security threats from the north, and as long as we do have many other agenda, as I already highlighted, again, the chances for the trilateral cooperation is higher than any time in the past. So having said that, regularize this kind of, again, the trilateral cooperation, or more like institutionalize this trilateral meeting might be, again, the necessary, and I think more people can accept this. However, again, at the same time, I will say, again, we need to be a little bit cautious, and it might take a little longer than probably we want to.
Right, I see. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, Mr. Killinger, moving on to the reaction and response from other countries, North Korea issued a statement saying the U.S. deployment of strategic assets such as SSBN could fall under the conditions of North Korea using nuclear weapons. And after saying that, it fired several cruise missiles into Yellow Sea on Saturday. Now, what does North Korea's recent move suggest, in your opinion?
Well, they're trying to intimidate Washington and its allies from increasing security cooperation. They're also trying to get Washington to reverse the recent trend of providing additional reassurance on the extended deterrence guarantee, which has been the resumption of military exercises, as well as the resumption of rotational deployment of strategic assets or nuclear-capable assets on or near the Korean Peninsula. So North Korea prefers when we degrade our deterrence and defense capabilities, as we did for 4 years when we canceled those military exercises and rotational deployments. So they're threatening with the nuclear threat, was that saying that just the deployment of a U.S. nuclear-capable submarine to a South Korean port was enough to justify a North Korean preemptive nuclear attack. Obviously, they wouldn't do so over that pretense. But it's all a way of trying to get the U.S. and its allies to back down.
Right. Mr. Klinger, one more question. Now, as the 70th anniversary of the signing of the Korean War Armistice, known in North Korea as Victory Day, as I have already mentioned, approaches, it is widely expected that a large-scale military parade will take place. Now, what kind of weaponry do you expect to see during the parade, and what more provocations should we expect around that time?
Well, from satellite imagery, we've seen very extensive parade preparations, so it's likely to be another large parade, as has occurred several times in recent years. We're expecting display of military weapons. We never know ahead of time, really, whether there'll be a new missile displayed or not. And whether North Korea does a missile launch or a 7th nuclear test has been long expected during the parade or not. It's just really a matter of timing. But what we've seen in recent years is an uptick in the number of launches that North Korea has done of its missiles. And it's all a way of trying to intimidate the U.S. and its allies. So things that would be even more provocative than what they've done in recent years would be an ICBM launch over Japan out to a large distance into the Pacific, perhaps displaying that it has reentry vehicle capabilities. It could also do the 7th nuclear test, which has been predicted by Washington and Seoul for over a year now, or sort of a barrage of missiles that would go over Japan, perhaps several intermediate range missiles. So, but oftentimes North Korea has just had the parade and using the display of current or former missiles as a way of trying to intimidate us.
Right, so though we'll have to wait and see, it's very likely that it is going to be very extensive. Now, Professor Lim, so this summit is also in a way intending to declare strong solidarity against China and Russia. So could you tell us more about the message this summit is trying to send to these countries? Could you be a little bit brief about this?
Well, first of all, I don't think, the trilateral cooperation, the purpose of this is not against China and Russia. Of course, now U.S.-China strategic rivalry is getting intensified. Russia caused the war. They deserve whatever those criticism from the rest of the world. However, as long as China and Russia are there within the region, again, they cannot be simply our enemy. They are in some ways, they are a partner as well. So I hope, and I think that the meeting are going to be much more constructive about, the future direction. And I hope, again, the three national leaders can discuss about, the better future possibility for the regional cooperation.
Right, I see your point. All right, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's edition. Thank you, Professor Lim and Mr. Clare, for your insights and your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. All right, that's all for Within the Frame tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.